Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the AAA Hole Podcast. I, of course, am your AAA Hole, otherwise known as Death Witch, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Ozzy the Australian. Say hey to everybody, Ozzy.
G'day, guys.
So, if you've been paying attention to the news this week, you have undoubtedly seen just the swarm of people, again, angry at Fallout 76. As before that game launched, they promised that they would put no pay-to-win mechanics in their Atom store. It would be cosmetic only, and then they put in something that some consider to be pay-to-win, and then a new term was thrown out there, which made me question, well, what is pay-to-win? They added the ability to, and it's all vague at the moment, so we don't exactly know how it's going to work, but they added the ability to repair your items by buying repair kits from their Atom shop, which is their paid shop. So we're going to be talking
just to correct you, I don't think they've actually added it yet, but they have talked about this is something they want to implement because apparently the user base has asked for it.
Well, my thing with it being pay to win is it depends on how it's going to work, because they've been that's what I mean by they've been vague with it. So if those repair kits can be used like in combat, you know, like you're kicking the shit out of some guy in PvP, you're in combat, his gear is broken and degraded, making him even weaker, and it means that you got a chance to kill him. But he's just spamming the healing items, you know, he's keeping himself alive, and then all of a sudden he can pop a paid item and get his item durability back to 100%. Well, that would be 100% pay to win, right? Now, the term that's been thrown around for the reason they're implementing this, and yes, they claim that their user base has asked for it, and their user base has asked for some of these things. So, traditionally speaking, well, you had shops in free-to-play games that only had cosmetic items, and if they contained anything other than cosmetic items, people would scream pay to win, and then that was considered bad. But now there seems to be a new level to it. It's not one or the other anymore. It's not just cosmetic or anything other than cosmetic is pay to win. Now it's, well, there's cosmetic items. And then there's what Fallout 76 is doing, which has been dubbed convenience items. And then you have things where, like, if you bought, you know, a gun in a first-person shooter, that would be pay to win. So that seems to be the current scale. So the topic of discussion, and why this is an open forum for everybody, I want everybody's opinion here, is what do you consider pay to win? When does a microtransaction in a game cross the line into being pay to win, exploitative of its user base, and enough to make you go, well, that's unfair, I don't want to play this game anymore? What do you think, Ozzy? And can you give us an example?
Basically, the first real question that has to be put to this topic is, can the people within the game get this item that significantly alters how the game is played without paying?
I don't think it's whether or not you can get it without paying, but the fact that you can just instantly get it by paying.
Oh, no. I'm just saying that's the first question that has to be asked. There are many other questions that come after it, but the first one at the top of the ladder is this only available to people that pay money? If yes, then that's the first serious issue.
Yeah, so that brings up another conversation about whether, you know, I mean, obviously, if paid users have access to exclusive, you know, game-breaking items that are only there for paid users, absolutely, that's pay to win. I mean, that's the most obvious example of it. Pain Streams in chat here is screaming that Call of Duty Advanced Warfare started this. And I believe that's the one. I'm not a huge Call of Duty fan, but I believe that's the one where you could straight up buy guns. And that was
from what I understand.
Were, that was around the time they were floating that Activision was floating that patent around where they had patented this way to use gamers to advertise to other gamers. So basically, in his example, in Advanced Warfare, was you would buy a better gun, which would make you get more kills during a match and make you better at the game. They had patented a matchmaking system that says, okay, if Ozzy bought this gun and it made him better than me at the game would continue to match me with Ozzy so that he could continue to dominate me. And every time he kills me, it's going to show me what gun he's using. So I can go, okay, if I have that gun that he has, then I stand a chance. Therefore, encouraging me to buy what he has bought. So it would basically stack the odds against people who didn't buy microtransactions and be the absolute personification and definition of pay to win. It's not that wasn't just pay to win. That was pay to win and then advertising the winners to the losers to make them pay.
But it wasn't just it wasn't just with Advanced Warfare. There was clear shadowing that if it worked with Advanced War, it was going to come to all their other things. So, did Diablo 3, you're on a team with someone, they're getting their stuff. Oh, here's this weapon that they're using. Do you want to get it? It was also looked at, from what I understand, coming to Destiny 2. Oh, here's this person that's destroying in Nightfalls and stuff. Here's the gun they're using. It might be a good idea if you pick that up. We'll help you if you like.
Yeah, so they had clearly wanted this to become a thing, and they had pushed for it in the industry with loot boxes that would drop guns. They had looked toward it, like you said, in Destiny. They had clearly been pushing for this, and I think if Star Wars Battlefront 2 hadn't happened, then they wouldn't have pulled back as hard as they did. Every company kind of did a 180 after Battlefront 2 hit, because Battlefront 2 clearly had pay-to-win mechanics in its loot boxes, and people lost their fucking shit.
Yeah, clearly if Battlefront 2 hadn't happened, I'm more than willing to say Destiny 2 would have had those pay-to-win mechanics in.
Quite possibly.
With it, by the end of that year.
Quite possibly. I mean, they were gearing up. Activision was gearing up to put that in as many games as they could. EA was obviously trying to put it in as many games as they could. And then Star Wars Battlefront 2 happened. Everybody lost their shit, and they realized that, okay, we're pushing too hard, too fast. And that's what worries me about this newest phrase that they've coined, the convenience items, is I think they're trying to bridge that gap and kind of edge one of those baby steps kind of deals, where maybe if we get people used to microtransactions, giving them an advantage a little bit at a time instead of throwing it at them all at once, let people get used to the concept first, and then we can introduce pay to win stuff and people will accept it. That's what it feels like they're trying to do here. My whole thing was, should convenience items even be a thing? Because I've seen all of the arguments floating around where if it's not cosmetic, it's pay to win. And then I see people going, well, if it's a convenience item and it's not affecting other players, then is it pay to win? Which then brings me to my other point, which is why I bring up the whole conversation. What is pay to win then? I mean, is it possible to have pay to win in a game? Because everybody's argument is if it doesn't affect other players, then it's not pay to win. But does that mean, can you have pay to win mechanics in a PvE game, in a game with no PvP? I mean, obviously what you're doing is not affecting other players at that point. So is it possible to have pay to win mechanics in a game where there's no PvP? I would say yes. Because
I was just going to say, in multiplayer games where there's no PvP, it becomes a little bit more murky, because there's really no reason to buy power if you're not going to be able to use it against another person.
Well, Painstream says that the reason you would do it would be for bragging rights. You know, Chad is saying, well, you're doing it for bragging rights at that point, which I would argue, I mean, isn't that what you're doing it in any game? Isn't that why you want to win and increase your rank in a PvP game? Is for bragging rights? I mean, you're not making any money doing it. You're not doing anything, but, you know, is being the best part of your fun? Is bragging part of your fun? In which case, yeah, that's winning for you. There's a very, 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 very small percentage of players who climb to the top of those leaderboards in PvP games actually go on to become professional gamers, you know. So that's not why you're doing it. Like, if that's your goal, then you're setting yourself up for failure. So the only real reason is because you like winning. So then
it's like those people in Warframe, if I know you're going to bring this up, that have Master Rank 25. That's basically a badge of honor that, yeah, I got to this level, man. I'm awesome.
Yeah, it's an achievement. It's a trophy you can show off that shows your dedication to the game. And yes, you're right. I was definitely going to bring up Warframe because Warframe is going to be my go-to example for can you have pay to win in a PvE game. Yes, Warframe has PvP, but I've been told on multiple occasions by every Warframe fan on the planet that doesn't count because no one plays the PvP in Warframe. No one cares about it. So since it's being largely ignored, it doesn't count. So Warframe allows you, for those listeners who may be unaware of the game or never experienced it, Warframe is a game that it is free to play, and you progress in the game by, as Ozzy said, raising up your mastery level. Now, that's different from your character level. Each one of your characters, or Warframes as they call them, they're suits, think Iron Man, suits of armor. Like if each one of his armored suits had a different level. That's what this is. You're one character, but you get to wear many suits of armor. And each one has their own level and stats. The mastery rank, though, think of that as your character rank. That goes up as you master more suits and more weapons. Each weapon has its own level as well. So there's a lot of stuff to grind in Warframe. So if you master this shotgun, max level it, you've mastered using it, then it will increase your mastery rank. The only way to keep increasing your mastery rank is to acquire more guns and more armor. More frames.
And just to take note of this as well, for those who have never actually played the game and are thinking, well, why don't you just de-rank that bit, because you would have to be able to do that, right? So why don't you just de-rank your gun and level it back up again? The thing with that is they took that into account, and that doesn't actually add to your master rank level. The only way to actually increase the master rank level is to get new guns and new warframes.
Yeah,
new characters, basically.
So if you get another version, like if you get that same version of that shotgun again, if you get a duplicate shotgun of one you already have and you level that up all the way to its max, that doesn't count as mastering that shotgun. You've already mastered it. It doesn't count. So the only way, as he said, is to get more. You have to keep acquiring new guns. You have to keep acquiring new frames. And here's where my issue with the game comes. And now keep in mind that this is, we're going at this from the angle that this is all PvE. So you're not going to be using this stuff on other players. But increasing your mastery rank is the only way to use some of the modifications for the guns, the higher end, in-game items. You have to reach a certain mastery rank in order to use some of that stuff. Now, there's two ways to acquire the guns and frames in-game, and this is where I draw the issue with it, although most of the Warframe community as a whole, which Ozzy will undoubtedly defend here, as he's a diehard fan of the game, most of them seem okay with this in Warframe. There's two ways to acquire those new guns or those new frames. You can grind for crafting materials in the game as a free player, which isn't super hard to do. Mind you, you can do it in a day or so, and then you can craft the item. So grinding a new frame, for example, a completely new suit of armor with completely new powers, basically a new character for the game, would take you about a day to grind some of them. to grind the crafting materials needed. And then you have to put it into a crafting process. You forge it. And the forging process, it also uses, a mobile game mechanic of making you wait, puts it on a wait timer. The crafting process for crafting a new suit of armor takes 3 days. So you have to either wait 3 days or pay to skip that wait timer and have it immediately. All right. The second way to get that new frame or that new gun is not to grind all those crafting materials and then wait for them to craft. But if you wanted them instantly, you could just buy them. Now, to Warframe's credit, it doesn't have any loot boxes. You just buy the thing you want outright. You want that gun, you click on that gun, you give them money, they give you that gun. You want that Warframe, you click on that Warframe, you give them money, they give you that Warframe. Instantly. Now, most Warframe players seem okay with this because of the fact that this doesn't affect other players, as they say. It's not pay to win because it doesn't affect other players. No one plays the PvP in Warframe, so you're not using it for PvP. It's just affecting you. I would argue that it doesn't. It does affect other players. You can group together, you can co-op, and obviously if you bring that guy with you who's dropped loads of money on the game and you're a low level, he's just going to carry you through the game. So yes, it does affect other players is what I would say. I would also consider it, me personally would consider it, and I'm sure Ozzy's going to argue the other side of this, but my personal take on it is that it is pay to win, because winning Warframe would be getting the frames, getting the stuff. Warframe is very much a collector's game where you collect things and you continue. I mean, the mastery rank system encourages that, collecting as much stuff as possible to have this massive arsenal of things to choose from for any given situation. Now, there's plenty of content to use it in, plenty of boss fights and plenty of missions of different kinds that require different frames. There's plenty of reasons to have this other than, you just want to collect it and you just want to get your rank up. There's plenty of actual in-game reasons to have it that make your gameplay easier, which I would argue just add to it's being pay to win, because if I run into a spy mission and I don't have a frame with a stealth mode and I'm having trouble, I can just buy a frame with a stealth mode and then boom, I can go into that mission with stealth mode and I can win it. So I have paid my way to win it and not have to wait 3 days, not have to grind.
All right, let's jump in.
Yep. I think I've explained the system pretty well in my take on it. Jump on in there.
Now, as Dev has said, you're able to get everything in the game that's either a character or a weapon for free. There's nothing held back behind a paywall. However, what he says about getting the plat, or which is the premium currency, is true. You can get certain frames. However, what they interestingly do is only the base frames are available. What they call prime frames, which are more advanced versions of these basics, you can't actually buy within the store. You can get them. You can get the parts and stuff off other players for the same plat currency. So it's creating its own economy within the game. But the other thing that this also does is that if there's a frame that you want to get now, you don't want to wait 3 days for it to craft. You want it now. You can actually go into this trading system and trade with other people to get the plat and then get that frame. So you're not actually having to put down any money into it. Someone else has, yes, but they're going up. That's the way the game actually supports itself, is to actually sell this premium currency and then allow the people within the users to actually decide how that actually goes.
Okay, so I'm really glad you brought up the in-game trading system, because I left that out for a reason, just to see if you'd bring it up. So what he says is true. You personally don't have to spend any money in Warframe. to get everything, even the paid content. You can get the premium currency for free, but not directly from the game. The game allows players to trade that premium currency with other players for in-game items. So what it essentially does, and it's genius, I guess, from a developer standpoint, from a business standpoint, but that brings me to another part of my argument. What it does is it essentially super capitalizes on the idea of there being a whale. Because the game knows, and those developers know, that they're not going to get every single free player to spend money. So how does the game continue to support itself? If there's some players that no matter how far in the game and no matter how much enjoyment they've got out of it for free, they're never going to spend more than 10, 20 bucks. And if you got players that's all they're spending and they've been playing for years, yeah, that's not going to be enough to support the game. I get that. And it gives you all these updates and all this content for free, and it is a free game. So the game ingeniously tries not to hurt those people, but does take full advantage of the idea of a whale. And for those of you who don't know what a whale is, that's a term that the industry uses for those players with disposable income who just are addicted to microtransactions or just don't mind throwing down. I mean, you can go on YouTube and look up videos on it. There's people who've spent thousands just on, Counter-Strike loot boxes and just open them at a time because they've got thousands to blow. So what Warframe does...
Go look at the FIFA market.
Oh, goddamn. Yeah, the sports...
Yeah, you think Counter-Strike goes bad. FIFA in itself rakes in hundreds of millions per year.
There's I think the worst I saw was a guy who spent $15,000 in one sitting on FIFA's player cards or whatever their loot boxes are called. So that's a whole nother story.
So when we talk about whales, basically those are the people we're thinking about.
Yeah, I'm going to get to the sports market. That's a whole topic in itself. But for right now, Warframe uses its whales to support its game and its community. So basically you've got your whale, your guy who has money to burn, and he just buys up platinum. He buys up that premium currency. He buys all the stuff he wants for himself, and then he continues to, after he's spent all the money there is to spend in the game, after he's bought all the things that he wants, he's collected all the stuff, he legitimately has no reason to continue to spend money on the game. But Warframe has found a way to keep him spending money even after he bought everything he personally needs, because he's in a guild, he's in a clan, and his clanmates aren't as fortunate as him with money. They don't have as much money as he has. So he's buying this currency to trade with them. And he's buying this currency to trade with other players, to support other players now. So that whale didn't just buy everything to get to the top, but he's buying his clan's way to the top with him. And even some randos. He's supporting the community. So that brings me to the question of, is it a pay-to-win in-game mechanic to allow that kind of trading? And should it be allowed? I would argue that in a free-to-play game, maybe, because the game obviously has to have a way to support itself since it doesn't have any sales. In a pay-to-play game, first of all, a lot of these mechanics shouldn't even be in a pay-to-play game. But if you have a game that you've paid $60 for, that's going to have some kind of in-game currency and market system like Fallout 76 and its Atom Shop, having a trading system like this may work out for the better, as there's people who could only afford to just buy the game still have a way to continue getting content without getting milked to death. Because a game that milks every single player to death is going to end up hurting itself. So to me, allowing the trading of premium currency is a double-edged sword. Because yes, it helps the individual player who doesn't have enough money to afford that stuff. But by milking the whales so hard, it encourages the industry side of things, the business side of things, to double down on these in-game currencies and practices, because now it has an excuse for putting them in. And the excuse is the whale. The whale is going to support us. And then when the free players or the cheap players who can only afford to buy the game, the people who don't have that kind of money, start to complain about it, the industry now has an excuse to defend itself and its practices by going, we'll just trade with another player. Just trade with a rich guy. I mean, when you think about that in real world terms, because this was argued by senators in Congress when we were arguing about our tax plans and about the normal people being affected by the increase in health insurance if they took away Obamacare and, all that stuff. I don't want to bring politics into this, but it really is the best real world example. I can't remember the senator that did it, and I probably should have looked for the clip before I started this podcast, but there was that senator who basically said what the game industry is saying here by telling you to trade with other players was he goes, well, just stay with a family member. Just crash on a family member's couch and you'll get the money together. Who's basically saying, so what if you're poor? You've got friends, right? You've got family. It's not like you're going to be homeless. And that did not end well for that congressperson, for that senator. I can't remember who said it, but that's essentially what the game industry is saying when they do these kind of in-game mechanics. Now, as a person who lives on a budget, I got a house, I got kids, I got bills to pay that come way before video games. So no, I don't have the money to drop $400 or $500 in microtransactions. So it does annoy me to no end to see those mechanics in games and then to hear the defense of, well, just trade with other players. Because I feel now that that's not the same as having an in-game store to me. I feel as if I'm at the mercy of a player-created market, which is much harder to maintain. The prices could fluctuate from week to week. It's really hard for me to budget and plan for that, especially if I'm not someone who can spend, 10 to 12 hours a day in game. So I have to plan for, okay, I have to set myself a goal in a game like Warframe that's, okay, I want this frame, I need to collect this much platinum, so I need to trade with other players and go for that. And then I can spend a week grinding the few hours a day I have to game as an adult with a life, the few hours a day I have to grind, and then collect enough stuff, I think, to trade for it. And then by the time I get ready to trade, that in-game market may have changed. I may not get as much for the stuff I'd been grinding for. It might not be worth as much. So now I'm no closer, or I'm marginally closer to getting the thing I thought I'd have. And I got to go back to the grindstone. Where with an in-game market, everything has a very clear price tag. And yes, it sucks that I have to be the one to pay it, but it stabilizes an economy. And it puts all of the blame entirely on the developer's shoulders, entirely on the publisher's shoulders. They're responsible for that economy. So they have no out and no excuse for their pay-to-win mechanics. It forces them to find better business practices to sustain their game. And now we're going to shift the conversation to the bad side of that, to using just that, because obviously I can't say that that's the fix-all and to remove the players from it, because the player economy has worked for Warframe. The players seem genuinely happy, which honestly blows my mind a little bit, because if you put these same business practices that they're doing into a game like Call of Duty, people would lose their fucking minds and lose their shit. So it's kind of a double standard there. But
the economy is good so long as you actually don't go in with the blinders on. You, like any good dealings, you have to go in with knowledge. So you got to look up the market that they've basically got listed on the internet. Find out what your price ranges are, and then go looking. Because if you just go in and say I want that and take it from the first person, there's a good chance you're more than likely going to get ripped off because you haven't done your proper due diligence for yourself.
Yeah, so that puts a lot of responsibility on the player. And I've experienced that. As someone who I'm a prime target for a scammer in Warframe. Because I'm someone who only games, a couple hours a night. And I don't really get too deep into all the grindy stuff because I just don't have time to do all that grindy stuff. So when I got my hands on a good item, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to trade this for some platinum so I can get what I want because I can't use this item. It's for a gun I don't have and I'm not going to buy or whatever. I threw it up in the in-game chat with no research done. And, you know, I got people like Ozzy here who is a diehard fan of the game, so he keeps track of all that stuff, and he could tell me, no, that's not what that's worth. But I can't help but think about the people who don't have that, who don't have an Ozzy on their side. They don't have that friend who can tell them to go look somewhere else, to go Google what this current market value is, and just use the in-game chat. The people who just want to play the game and think it's cool that they can trade, and then they throw something up in chat and some guy offers them just super low ball offer. Well, they're probably getting ripped off left and right. Because until, you know, Ozzy informed me that's not what it's worth, and then told me about that website that I can go to that keeps track of that. There is a website not run by the developers, run by the community, that I need to go to. So now, on top of the very few hours I have a day to play the game, to actually grind for things in the game, I now have to spend time outside the game researching the market so that I don't get screwed over just trying to get something. Because I'm not a whale and I can't afford to just buy it outright. So there's pros and cons to this system. And it probably could be implemented better on the developer side of things to protect the players who are going to use it to help them take advantage of the whales. Now, on the opposite side of that coin, the games that don't have an in-game trading system at all, like your Destiny and your games like that require every single user to buy every single piece of content. You know, like your Anthem or your Fallout or your Destiny, where yeah, you can't buy the guns and gear in Destiny, but you got to buy all the expansions, you got to buy all the DLCs. You know, they have things to buy in that too. So, and those games have to have a way to support themselves. But this is where I'm going to throw those sports games in as an example and how they've completely ruined the market for people like us. Because when you go over to the sports games, and I don't play sports games, but there's lots of people that do, and they get pretty hardcore with it. So you go over to the sports games, you can't trade that premium currency with other sports games. Every single sports fan, every single FIFA fan, every single Madden fan, every single NBA fan has to spend the same amount of money as every other NBA fan to get that thing that they want. There's no way to get it from another player. And those prices don't come down, and they don't change, and their predatory nature gets worse because now you're suffering. Because when that whale decides he wants to spend an absolute ludicrous amount of money on loot boxes, all that does is guarantee that the next game, the next installment of FIFA, the next Madden, the next NBA, all that's going to do is ensure that there'll be more of that in the next game. NBA 2K, the 2K games, has been notorious for being games that are ridiculously overpriced at launch with their 15 million different versions of the game. You got your standard $60 version, which gives you jack fucking shit. That if you want to have a good leg up on the competition or even a good way to play the game on day one, you better be spending $120. You better be getting that deluxe Hyper Diamond edition or whatever the fuck they're going to call it this year, that has the base game, and it has a season pass, and it has X amount of dollars worth of their currency, and some pre-order bonuses. You better fucking pre-order, and some pre-order bonuses. And I mean, these pay-to-win mechanics are there in these sports games from day one, and the fact that sports games are doing so ridiculously well is their justification for pouring these mechanics over into other games. It's why you see them pop up in games like Fallout. It's why you see them pop up in Anthem, should they ever pop up there, or Call of Duty like they popped up there, or Star Wars. It's why you see these mechanics pop up, because no one fucking bats an eye at them in sports games. You very rarely hear anyone other than the journalists complaining about sports games. The actual fans who play the games don't seem to complain about it. And I think I understand why. It's because it's a different kind of fan. Sports games fans tend to only play sports games. I know a few of them in real life. These are the guys who don't play video games that often, and when they do, it's to play a sports game.
They're generally they're generally what you would consider the jock in high school.
Yeah, their time
From my
not
experience.
their time not playing video games is spent at a sports bar watching sports, drinking with their buddies. Sports video games are what they do when the sport they want to watch isn't on television, but they still want an excuse to enjoy that sport with their friends. Now they're going to play the video game. And they're going to buy all that stuff because they want their team to be the best. And they use these video games for their, sports fantasy leagues. And they create their own little brackets and tournaments and stuff with their friends. It's a way for them to enjoy the sport when the sport's out of season. So they're not gamers. They're sports fans. They're a difference. But when you pour these mechanics that work on sports fans over into the community of gamers who care about the games and who play the games that could give two shits about sports, it's having a very negative effect. Painstream says he pays $60 for the next Call of Duty. 2 months later, he's got to pay half the original cost for 2 new maps. Repeat this 3 more times, then $40 trying to get a new skinned weapon by buying the loot boxes. Yeah, and you can't trade in Call of Duty. So if you want that skin you saw that other guy using, that paint job, or if they allow the buying of guns again, then the amount of money you could end up spending on a $60 Call of Duty game. It's ridiculous. Games don't cost $60 anymore. Now look, I understand that games are expensive, ridiculously expensive to make. And especially now that we've entered the realm of games needing to be online and games having communities and not just, okay, I beat the game, let me move on to buying the next game. Because that's the way it used to be. It used to be you bought a game, you beat a game, and then you'd buy a new game. So these developers could maintain themselves just by pumping out new game after new game. It was, back in the Super Nintendo PS1 days, it's not like they just kept throwing you DLC for Final Fantasy VII. No, you played Final Fantasy VII, you beat Final Fantasy VII, and next year you might get a Final Fantasy VIII. And after that, a Final Fantasy IX and Final Fantasy. They were new game after new game. They weren't just focused on constantly expanding one game. But now that we've entered that realm, and if you're going to have a game like Destiny where you're intended to play this game for years upon years on end, and it's this massive world that's constantly expanding and taking all that constant development time. I mean, it's big enough to be, an entire trilogy of games at this point. The Destiny 2 at this point, with all the DLC they've released now. I'm not talking about Destiny 2 at launch. I'm talking about Destiny 2 today, right now, has enough content in it to rival the entire Halo trilogy that Bungie made. Its original 3 games. And that's just in their one game. So yeah, that amount of development time and that amount of work is going to take a lot of financial support beyond just the $60 sale of the game. The question is, how do you balance that? And when does a microtransaction in a game cross the line over into being pay to win? And that's where the current debate is at. That's where the current argument is at, is where does that cross the line? Where is that line drawn? Because now that they've introduced the idea of convenience items, there's this huge debate over whether or not convenience items are pay to win. For instance, in an RPG, in an MMO, if you can pay for an experience booster that helps you level your character faster, is that pay to win? I mean, what's considered winning in an MMO? The game has no end. And if you're not playing for the PvP, what's considered winning? Is it reaching the level cap? Is it getting ready for in-game? Is buying your way to the level cap so you can play the in-game with your buddies paying to win? Or is it, is paying for advancement paying to win? And there's no clear answer on that. I would argue yes. That I would argue that any mechanic in a game where I'm paying you to not play your game, then I am paying to win. I am paying you to allow me to skip parts of your game. To me, that's winning. That's getting to the end faster. I am opting out of part of the journey. I'm opting out of part of the experience so that I can get to the end faster, so that I can win. Now, regardless of what my motive is. Yeah. I mean,
it would be like paying $1 in the original Super Mario Brothers. At the start of each level, you got the option to pay $1, and if you do, a little portal opens up, and you walk through, and you get to the end. Immediately.
Like if the original Mario or the original Pac-Man or the original Donkey Kong or some of those old school games, if they had the kind of mechanics that Candy Crush has, where if you fail this level and you're having trouble with it, you can pay to skip it and then just get to the next level. Yes, I would argue that is definitely pay to win. I'm paying to get past this part of the game that's too hard or would take too much time. Is it convenient? Sure, skipping a level that is frustrating me and I can't get good at and I can't win so that I can keep playing the game and see what comes after. Yeah, that's super convenient. Super convenient. It is also cheating, and you're paying to win. You know, it's the same as, you know, skipping in line at a movie theater. If they had a special pass that you could pay extra to not have to stand in line to buy your ticket or wait for that movie, especially think of a big midnight showing of like an Avengers movie or a Marvel movie. What if you didn't have to get there and wait hours to make sure you got a ticket? What if they had special VIP tickets? Or you could pay extra.
They do these days. You can pre-purchase. I've got messages on my Facebook account from the local cinema saying, pre-purchase your ticket now.
Yeah, well, I mean, beyond just pre-purchasing, imagine what I'm saying, Ozzy, is imagine you pre-purchased your ticket and then you go wait in line to make sure you're there at the midnight showing. And some asshole comes up in a fur coat and pays twice the amount for his ticket that you paid for yours to basically take your spot. Because he doesn't want to wait for the next showing. This happens on planes where people get bumped off flights because a higher paying person, you know, because they overbooked or whatever. Flights do that shit all the fucking time. Is it convenient for him? Yeah, sure, super convenient. But it's an inconvenience for everyone else. So when you're introducing convenience items into game, what's a convenience for you? People need to step outside of their personal bubble and quit thinking about just themselves. Because what's convenient for you and your experience to the game could be detrimental to other people. It's a bad feeling if you're someone who logs into a game, especially one of these online persistent world games like your World of Warcraft or, you know, your Destiny 2s or, you know, your Anthem. If you've spent all this time working to earn something in the game, and then some jackass comes in and buys the same stuff you've already got, even if it's just a level. If you spent, 30 hours leveling the perfect javelin in Anthem, and then some asshole logs in, buys a bunch of experience boosting, gets there in 2 hours, it kind of devalues the time you've spent. It's the publisher and the developer saying that your time wasn't as important as his money. It's a bad fucking feeling. And for some people,
really,
it would make you want to quit the game.
That's what it comes down to in most free-to-play games. It's you spend something. You spend time or you spend money. And as long as you're not getting an advantage over someone else at the end, it's really not that big a deal so long as you can do one of the other options. You're not forced into a specific route. Yeah. However, this totally gets thrown out the window for competitive stuff.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. If it's a competitive game, then there should be no element where your money could affect my playing of the game. But even for the non-competitive stuff like Warframe and like your free-to-play games where I know I'm getting this game for free, so I'm going to be spending a lot of my time in the game. That's my price to pay. It
also comes down to... It does
affect my...
Is it geared?
Well, it does affect my... Like, even though Warframe's pretty fair, like you said, it does what you just mentioned. You can either get that frame with time spent or you can get that frame with money spent. But in the end, your frame is the same as my frame. We both got the same thing. So you didn't buy an advantage. You just buy to get there faster. It's still disheartening for players like me who take pride in the amount of grind and work that we've done. When, you know, I feel like my time was wasted because I didn't have money. I almost feel I don't feel like I accomplished something in the end. I feel like I was being punished for not paying. It's a different feeling.
I'm basically the other way on that, where it's if I hear about someone who's paid down, what is it for the Prime pack, $80 or something?
Yeah, it's they're not cheap.
Yeah, if I hear about someone who's paid $80 to get the new frame that I've actually now got in the Foundry cooking at the moment. By cooking, to those people who don't know, I mean actual building. If I hear someone's paid $80 to get this same frame that I've got building now for free, I more look at it and go, "You're a bloody idiot."
Yeah, well, I mean, I still do that, but I also still feel like I was still... It still feels like I'm being punished for not being that idiot. Like, yes, I got it for free. I'm smarter than you, financially speaking. But that idiot may have $80 to burn. And he could look at me like, you're an idiot. That's a lot of time wasted. Your time is finite. Money's not. Because to him, his perspective can be completely different. I think balance is dreadfully important. And a lot of these games overlook that balance. They lack that balance.
Yes, that's what I was actually going to bring up before. That as long as it's geared properly, that it's not geared to the point where you're actually being punished for not spending, which, in my opinion, they actually do that quite well in Warframe. They don't punish you for not spending money. It takes about maybe an hour and a half, we'll say, at the top end, maybe 2 hours, to fully level a Warframe from level 0 to level 30, which is the cap. It takes about 2 hours tops.
Well, we should be looking at the amount of time it takes to grind that frame versus buy that frame. And of course, I mean, buy-in's always going to be instant. But I mean, even if you buy it, it's bought at level 1. You still have to level the frame, but I mean, both sides of the argument have to level it. So that's not considered time spent. What I mean is, okay, I can buy, a Warframe like that and have it right now, whereas you have to go and grind out the crafting materials to get that frame and then spend.
Not really.
I mean, even if you grind out the materials.
If you play the game the right way, basically, you should be getting enough materials to build anything you need with just in the game itself.
Yeah. Well, my argument for it not being balanced, as far as the grind time versus the purchase time, if it worked the way you said it worked, then I'd have much less of a problem with it, because if it just feels like a natural progression through the game, that I'm running across these frames by accident because I just happen to have enough materials to craft that blueprint, and now I can craft that Warframe. The problem comes in the wait timer on the forge. Bare minimum, even if you've gotten all the parts.
I agree with you I will agree with you 100% here.
Because I'm going to buy that Warframe instantly. And even if you have all of the parts, you're still going to be 3 days behind me because you got to wait for it to cook. You've got to wait for it to craft, even with all the parts. That has no place in Warframe, I feel. I mean, I don't think it has a place in gaming at all, but the mobile market has full on embraced it. But as far as mainstay games, PC gaming, console, that kind of mechanic has absolutely no place in it, ever. But when I say balance, I think that there should be an incentive for both so that you don't devalue either. Those people that pay want to take pride in the stuff they've bought. And those are the people with money to burn who are the people who in real life probably have plenty of expensive things they've bought that they love showing off, like trophies. They take pride in their purchases, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for the people who don't have the money to take the purchase, we need to take pride in the stuff that we've worked to earn too. So a game like Warframe should have those things you can only get by buying, and they shouldn't be anything game breaking. But on the other end of the spectrum, they should also have things that you can only get by grinding. Like there should be a grind only Warframe. You can only get this Warframe if you grind for it. So that if you see another player using this Warframe, you know he earned it. And then there should be a Warframe you can only get by buying. And they shouldn't be like game-breaking Warframes. Even if it's just a cosmetic difference between the grinded version versus the paid version. Just a way for people to look at it and immediately know he paid for that one. And then look at it and go, oh, he spent a week grinding for that one.
To a degree, that's basically the prime frames, that you can't just throw plat at the game in order to get them. However, it doesn't actually punish you for having really bad luck either, because you can get the parts you need for it through the trading system. And especially with that, as I said about half an hour ago, that you can grind up certain things that you can get. So like different mods, like certain things that only come around every so often, like the primed mods, which are, you can only get them from a specific NPC at specific times of the year. So if you actually plan stuff out, you can stockpile those, rank them up, and sell them to the other people who are those whales that you were talking about. Get what you need from plat from those, and then get whatever you need.
Yeah,
without having to spend a single time.
And that's where I feel the in-game trading system is a double-edged sword, because it's great that players would have that option, but you're taking away the trophy from the people who either work to earn it or who take pride in the fact that they bought it. I feel like there should still be one of each in order to balance the game. Well, like a great example would be when Fortnite first launched. I mean, yeah, you could buy skins, but it also had things like the umbrella that you only got if you won a Battle Royale game. So if you saw somebody diving in, and it didn't change the way the game played. It was something you only saw at the very beginning of the match. But if you saw other people, landing in Fortnite, when the game first launched, it's different now, but when the game first launched, when you saw people diving in with that umbrella, that meant they had won a game. If it was, and it was separated by solo versus group. So if you were playing a solo game, then you knew that guy had won a solo battle royale game. He was the last man standing. And if you saw it with a team, then that team was the last man standing. So they had those items that you could not buy, that you could only get through merit. You had a trophy that you could show off that shows that, yeah, you've bought that better looking skin, but I'm still better than you at the game.
Personally speaking, you might feel different. Anyone listening may feel different. This is just coming from my own perspective. It all comes really to your own attitude to it. To get back to our main basic topic around this whole thing seems to be Warframe, because we're both knowledgeable on it, or somewhat knowledgeable. One of my personal favorites in the game is my Ivara frame, which can only be obtained by getting a random drop off a perfectly completed spy mission.
Yeah, it's one of the harder ones to farm.
That's one of the harder ones to get. I grinded that one out myself. So I did heaps of spy missions and basically perfected the whole thing in order to get this frame. Now I feel personal accomplishment from that.
Yeah, but you don't
if I see someone out there, if I see someone, the Warframe is my trophy.
Yeah, but now if I see someone out there, I couldn't look at you and tell if you grinded that Warframe or if you bought it.
Oh, but that's not my point. The point is, if I see or hear about someone who's then gone out and bought that frame, it's not diminishing my accomplishment. I'm still very proud of my Ivara because of the way I got it. How someone else has got it doesn't care to me.
Yeah, but my point was having something that other people could look at and immediately know that you grinded for it and you earned it. Payne says that they still, chat is telling me that they still do that in Fortnite, that every season they add a new exclusive umbrella that you can only get by winning a match. And that's the kind of cosmetic trophy I'm talking about, where, you know, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at the game. You can't have this. You can't buy this with money. You need to do what I did. And then, you know, Fortnite also has its skins that no matter how much grinding of the battle pass that you do or how many matches you win, you can't have this skin unless you bought it. So it has that distinction where there's something for each kind of player. There's players who strive to be the best, have proof that they are. And those players who want to collect all the things and want their bling that's exclusive for them, they have that too. And Warframe lacks that distinction. And which is great for those people who want everything and maybe don't want to buy it, or those people who want everything and do want to buy everything. It's great for those people who want to collect all of the things and who go in with your mindset of, well, I know how I got it, so I'm happy with it. But there are a ton of players who it will diminish their accomplishment if they worked so hard for it and then some other guy just bought it and he got the same thing that they got without doing all the work. It does diminish your accomplishment when you know other people can just pay to bypass the work that you did. It makes the work that you did feel pointless. And I mean, it's that way in real life. If you spent, you know, all this time working on something and building it yourself from scratch, and then some guy just buys one just like it, you feel like you wasted your time. I can't really give any specific examples. I'm drawing a blank right now, but that happens all the time.
If you want specifics, let's just go with the basic one everyone would know about: IKEA.
Yep.
You build the table, and then you find out that your next door neighbor hired some guy to build it for him.
Yeah, no one likes, I mean, speaking of neighbors, no one likes the feeling of, you know, feeling like somebody paid to have something better than they did when they worked hard on it. Like, I can work, like, I've seen two of my neighbors kind of go through this, and I've been watching from afar, where they live directly across the street from each other, and I can see them, and they're two of those neighbors who take pride in their lawn. And there's this one guy who he spent his time grooming his lawn and mowing the grass himself and, you know, trying to make it perfect. And his neighbor didn't like the fact that his looked better. He worked and made his look better than his neighbors across the street. So what did that neighbor across the street then do? He's hired a company to come in and redo his whole lawn to make it look better than the guy across the street. It's frustrating. When you've put all this work in and then because that guy had more money, he's got either the same thing or something better. Yeah, it's frustrating. You just get that moment of, oh, come on. Well, what the fuck am I doing? Why do I care anymore? If all my hard work is no match for his money, then why am I working so hard? Why don't I just have a normal lawn? Why do I need to have one that looks as good as the one that he paid for if everyone's just going to look at my lawn and go, oh, well, how much did you pay? You know, when everyone looks at what you have and assumes you just paid for it like he did, it diminishes your work because no one looks at it and goes, wow, you did a good job. No one looks at it and congratulates you on your work. People look at it and go, oh, how much did you pay for it? They just automatically assume you bought it. And it's the same way in games. If you've got no distinction between a paid player and a free player, nothing for each one to shoot for, no goal, no trophy for each one to shoot for, then it kind of diminishes both. And I had that feeling in Warframe more than once. And don't get me wrong, I know I've spent a lot of this podcast talking about Warframe. I liked the game, and I enjoyed it. But it was disheartening to spend hours upon hours. I got real into it for a while. Me and Ozzy spent countless hours in it. And I worked and grinded all that stuff. And I've gotten what I feel accomplished in the game. I feel like I've gotten everything I've wanted out of it for free. I didn't pay anything. I bought plat here and there to just support the developers, but I didn't buy any Warframes. I didn't buy any gear. I spent some money on cosmetics and some stuff for my ship to show off my ship a little bit on stream, but I feel like I earned all the stuff that I want to earn. But then to get to that point in the game and have people tell me that I don't have enough. I'm not ready to do this part of the game. But if I want to get there, I could just pay money. Or that some other guy is there because he just paid money. It's a little disheartening. So, in my personal opinion, what makes, to get back on topic, yes, to answer chat, this picture I've got up, for those of you listening to the podcast and not watching the video version, I do throw graphics up pertaining to what we're talking about, and there is a picture of Scrooge McDuck slapping the shit out of another duck with a giant sack of money.
Donald.
Yeah, just slapping the shit out of him with a giant sack of money. That's very much, chat is correct, that's very much what mobile gaming feels like. And the last mobile game I played, and I know I streamed it forever. We had a clan going in it. I got real into it. We spent hours upon hours playing Marvel Contest of Champions. I had a good 8 to 10 people grinding that with me every night. And we'd do those guild wars, the big group battles. We had reached in-game level without paying a dime. And we would just get slaughtered every time because we'd reach that level where the people were just so advanced that you realize that there's no way to grind to that level without throwing heaps of money at the game. There's just no way. You get to a point in those mobile games where the free players hit a wall, and it's like the top 10 slots of most of those mobile games are basically just pissing contests between whales at who can throw the most money at the game. They're not even playing the game anymore. They're just throwing money at it so that they can keep their top spot. The free-to-play players aren't even part of that equation anymore. And we grinded and tried our best to get to the top just to see how close we could get as free players. And we got to this part, man, where there was this guy just kept paying to res himself. You can pay for resurrections in that game. You can pay to revive characters and to heal characters in between battles. And we were battling our way to the top, and this guy he would not go down. We'd beat the crap out of him, and then in between matches, he would pay to heal his people and just beat the crap out of us again. All that work we did to take down one or two of his players was undone during the next fight because he'd pay to heal him. And he was very clearly just paying for that advantage. So yes, that's very much pay to win. There's nothing that blatant in AAA gaming yet. Keyword being yet.
Yet, yes.
But you can feel them slowly inching their way closer to it with Fallout 76's. If they introduce Fallout 76's repair kits where they can be used in combat, well, that's the baby step right there. yes, arguably a slight advantage in combat, but an advantage nonetheless. And any advantage, I would argue, anything you can pay for with money that gives you an advantage over another player or the game itself. I'm taking the other player part out of the equation for those people who don't play PvP games. If you're playing a PvE game and you're buying an advantage in that game, even if it's not over other players, if it's just over your personal experience, you're still personally paying to win. You're paying to make your game easier. Your Mortal Kombat Easy Fatality token that thing. And it may make the game more enjoyable for you, but you cannot deny the fact that you paid for that advantage. That you only have that advantage because you threw money at the game. Whether that advantage be an Easy Fatality token, an experience boost in a game where you can level faster. Those are not convenience items. Those are pay-to-win items with a different name. You are paying to skip part of the gameplay experience so that you can be, so that you can beat it, so that you can win. It's the end game. That's the goal. So that's my personal take on it. I see this convenience item phenomenon that's popping up in all these games, trying to sneak those in as the baby steps, the gateway drug, if you will, to pay to win mechanics in games. And they're going to slowly start sneaking them in, and they're going to give them to you on an IV drip, if you will, slowly getting you used to them, building your tolerance so that you, as a gamer, when they start to get more egregious, you're not as offended when you see them. You expect them, you're used to them, you accept them. That's what they're doing. They're building up that acceptance, because if you just punch people in the face with it like Star Wars did, you're going to get some backlash. They know that now. All right, so I can read one more comment before we end this podcast here, because we've been going for over an hour at this point. But one thing that drives me to play is the grind of going from the bottom to becoming someone on the so-called world stage. So good to the point the company asks you to either rep the company or you hold the top spot for a few days, even a few days, so that you get some free swag or some free recognition in the community. But now everyone wants to be like Trump and throw money at it to make it easy. And if they don't throw enough money, they don't get there. Yeah, so Spyro has a point. That's what free players want to be able to do. And that's where I said that balance comes in. Because even if someone like Spyro, even if you can't play the game for free and reach the top spot, even if you can't reach to become the number one player and get that recognition from the company to, give yourself some kind of trophy or to become an ambassador on the community forums or whatever, whatever little badge of honor they decide to give you. Having something that's exclusive for free players gives them something to go for and gives them something they can show off. It gives them some recognition and a place where they'd otherwise have none. And it's the same way for paid players. It gives them a little something that they can show off to say, I like this game enough to support it with money beyond my initial purchase if it was a purchasable game. They already kind of do that with pre-orders by giving you exclusive pre-order crap. Games like Marvel Heroes did that, where if you bought the Founders Pack, you got access to some stuff that no one else could ever buy ever. So you had something to show off the trophy, if you will.
Again, same with Warframe again. If you were an early adopter back when it first started, there's a frame called Excalibur Prime, which you cannot get anymore. It was founder only, and so if you see someone with a Excalibur Prime, that person has been there since the beginning.
Yeah, and that's fine. They should have that trophy. They should have that thing that shows that. Maybe not even, I'm not even just talking about people who came in on the ground floor and helped the game become what it is, but even later now, there should still be something for those people who choose to support the game monetarily. They should get some kind of trophy that shows that, hey, we're helping that.
You kind of have that for your operator, which
with the cosmetics, and
is your
it
main
should
character.
Be mostly cosmetic stuff, just like there should be some grindable only cosmetics.
With each Prime pack, that they've got an accessories thing that you can get separately. You don't have to actually buy the actual
but it's
highest tier of
it's stuff you can only get with money.
But it's all cosmetic, and you can only get it while this thing is running. Once it's stopped running, it's gone for good.
Yeah, which my argument is there should also be a balance to that, where there should be, exclusive cosmetics that you can only get by grinding during this amount of time. So that there's people who don't have, $50, $80 or however much it is for a pack, can still have a little something to show off that showed that, I played the game during that event and I grinded the shit out of it. Because those players, you give free players those rewards, you show them some love, they're more likely to give you some money in the future. Even if they're not going to be a whale and throw hundreds at you, then they might, go, you know what? Yeah, I'll give them, I'll buy some plat. I'll actually buy some plat.
There is one weapon like that within the game that it's only available during a certain event. And you have to basically grind to complete this event, get things, and then you build it. There's basic weapons you can build within the game called Zors, and they're really one of the best melee weapons within the game. And there's one Zor that you can only get during a event called Plague Star, and
and you have to grind.
If you see it, and you have to grind for it, you cannot get you cannot buy it off someone through the trade system. You cannot buy it with plat from the store. The only way to get it is through this event.
Yeah, and there should be more of that. Like, there should obviously be the event stuff, and there should also be stuff that's just in there all the time, just to give new players something to shoot for if they're playing for free. Because when I can't speak for other players, but I know when I'm playing a free-to-play game and it's got some stuff in there that's just for me, just for the free player. Well, if I work and I earn that and I feel like it's worth showing off, then I feel like they've earned some of my money. So then I'll throw them a few dollars. Like, for the next event, I might actually buy some of the stuff instead of grind it. So, or I might actually purchase some plat. And I have. I've spent money on Warframe. And I'm fine with that. Because I don't want this to be a podcast that sounds like I hate Warframe. I like Warframe. I'm going to be that devil's advocate that's telling you that it's not as perfect as their community would have you think it is. It's a great game. It does have a great economy, and it does have a great player base, but it is far from perfect. Is it worth your time? Absolutely. Is it worth your money? If you're spending the time in it and you're enjoying it? Absolutely. They'll frequently give you discounted plat if you want to just spend the money and get the plat. There's plenty of stuff there that's worth buying with money that doesn't break the game. But it's not perfect.
So some of the weapon skins, the Warframe skins.
Yeah, there's a lot of frills. There's a lot of bells. Yeah, there's a lot of bells and whistles you can buy. I've bought
and also
skins for my Rhino and color palettes to recolor things. There's a lot of cosmetics there.
And one of the best thing with the weapons, or the weapon and character skins, is that the ones actually created by the community, when someone actually buys one of those skins, a portion of those profits go back to the actual creator.
So yeah, and that's great. More games should do that too. But to wrap up this conversation and to get everybody listening to the podcast, first of all, thank you for listening. And the moral to take away from this exorbitantly long story and this debate is, if you feel a mechanic is pay to win, whether or not the internet agrees with you, You need to do what I'll say you should do at the end of every podcast, and that is vote with your wallet. Encourage your clanmates and your friends to vote with their wallet and do the same thing that you do to not support that business practice. If it irks you, if you roll your eyes at it, don't bite the bullet and buy it anyway, even if you want it. Instead, bite that bullet and don't buy it and make a statement. Because even if the internet says it's okay and says, well, I don't think it's pay to win because it doesn't affect other players. If it's detrimental to your personal gaming experience, then don't spend money on it. That's just the bottom line to take away from this. Remember, end of the day, guys, it's just a video game. And if one is doing something you don't like or hurting your experience, you aren't married to these games. You don't have any commitment to these companies. And I promise you, these companies have no commitment to you. So drop that game. Find another one. Support the ones that have earned your money is what I'm saying. That deserve it. And those that do these shitty business practices don't deserve your money. Games like Anthem and Fallout that released in broken states, unfinished games that want to milk you to death, don't buy the game. Don't support it. Buy it when it's finished and on sale. And if these companies notice all of their sales are coming from the finished version and not from the pre-order, they'll, I promise you, if enough people
finish
do that,
the game.
Yeah, if enough people do that, I promise you, they'll change their business strategy for their next game. We have the power to fix these problems, which is why we spend these podcasts talking about them. But I can't do it alone. Neither can you. Share this. Share your buying habits with your friends. Share this idea with your friends so that the more gamers we get on board to vote with their wallets, the bigger an impact we have and the better chance we have of righting the ship. So, thank you for listening, everybody. Those of you who were here on Twitch and part of the conversation, thank you for being here. Hang out. This party isn't over yet. There will be a podcast after party when I turn off this recording. And for those of you who downloaded it, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking me with you on your morning walk, your commute to work, your whatever. And I'll see you guys next week. Say bye to everybody, Ozzy.
Bye, everyone. Catch you around.
See you next week, guys.